Story 1. For some reason, and heaven knows why, I decided to trust a very small and local credit union with some of my money. Recently, when my card did not work at the automated teller machine, I went inside the branch to ask for help. A clerk gave me a code I could use that would deduct cash directly from my account. This was not special treatment, but simply a feature the credit union had available. Fast forward a few days, and it appeared that the credit union system flagged my account for review because of an accounting error. The system had been late to deduct from my balance. I did not go into overdraft or anything of the sort, it was just a minor mistake on their end. Still, for over a month, all my funds were locked. Whenever I called the credit union's customer support line, I received unhelpful or snarky responses. At times, the staff even hinted at disliking me because of my foreign-sounding last name. When I spoke to my family back home to vent about this whole situation, a younger cousin came up with an idea. He suggested I use a Russian-based service that pays people a few Russian rubles, about 1 ruble being roughly 1 cent in United States currency, at the time each time they post whatever you ask them to on social media. This service worked like magic. The website even gave the option to choose between profiles that looked American and those from other countries. After spending the most worthwhile $3 of my life, along with a few artificial intelligence-generated prompts, the credit union's social media pages were suddenly flooded with hundreds of complaints. I am certain this reached the right people because, on the very same day, the credit union's call center manager personally phoned me. He explained that they understood my frustration. Even if I no longer wished to keep my account, the credit union was prepared to initiate a full transfer of my entire balance, plus $50 in compensation, to any other bank of my choosing. Problem solved. They likely also realized there was no way to trace this activity back to me, which is probably why they hinted at ending the matter on a positive note. The only downside is that I cannot ask the Russian-based posting service to remove their complaints. That will simply have to be someone else's problem now. Story 2. So, for some background, hi. I work at a small family-owned reptile shop. I am 20 years old, transgender masculine, and autistic. Despite being hired only to take care of the reptiles, since I love reptiles more than I like people, my manager and boss trust me enough to open and run the shop by myself. I do not have a problem with this. I am just setting the scene. About a month or two ago, I was asked to open the shop. Of course, I went to do so, and when I got there, I saw a woman standing outside with 2 young boys, probably around 6 to 8 years old. I had no idea how long she had been standing there since I arrived just before opening time. As I got out of my car and pulled out my key to open the shop, one of the young boys looked at me and asked, "Is that Daddy? Who's that?" I just stayed silent because I had no idea how to respond to that. Despite being transgender masculine, at that time I was only about a week into starting testosterone, so I did not and still do not look like a man, much less a dad. If anything, most people tease me for looking like I should still be in middle school. Anyway, the woman looked at me and said, "Ignore him, he's autistic," to which I responded, "Oh, no worries, I am on the spectrum as well. I understand." I opened the shop, and the child still seemed to think I was his dad or something, while also asking his mom who I was and at the same time addressing me with female pronouns. Normally, I would have corrected that right away, but I felt that now was not the time. The woman kept telling the boy to stop, and since I am not great with social cues, I figured that if she was telling him to stop, then I had no obligation to answer him. So, I got them a mouse for their snake as requested, and all went well. When I went to ring them up, the child started asking me the same set of questions again. I was uncomfortable because I did not know if I should answer, given that the woman had already told him to stop, and also because I generally just do not like small children. After a while of him continuing to refer to me with female pronouns, I finally spoke up and awkwardly said, Well, firstly, I am a boy." And before I could even tell the child my name to get him to stop, the woman suddenly barked at me. "He doesn't know any of that gender stuff. Just tell him your name." I was taken aback by this, but I did as she said and told the boy my name. Then he said, "Oh, he's not Daddy," and seemed satisfied. She then took her kids and stormed out, while another customer came in. The new customer asked what had happened since apparently she looked upset, which was hard for me to tell since I cannot read people well, and, on top of that, she kind of has a naturally unfriendly expression. So, I gave him a quick summary of what happened, to which he found it both ridiculous and pretty amusing. I then went to get him a rodent as requested. While I was upstairs picking out a good-sized rat, I heard him talking to someone with a female voice. Then I heard the words, "Mama Bear," and in the back of my mind, I thought, that better not be that lady again. And surprise, as soon as I came down the stairs, I saw her bleached blonde hair standing by the rack of ultraviolet and heat bulbs, glaring at me. I did not even get the chance to give the man his rat before she told me she wanted to talk to me for a moment. She then proceeded to tell me how I had disrespected her and her son, and how he was now sitting in the car crying. He had been completely happy and content when they left earlier, so I would not be surprised if he was crying because of her yelling. She once again ranted about how he did not understand gender stuff, and that she wanted to report me to my manager. She did not even let me get a single word in, and as she stormed off, I called back to her, "Ma'am, I did not do anything to disrespect you or your son. I would also like to once again bring up that I am autistic as well, and I do not always understand people well, but I do try my best." She did not even react to that as she stormed off. I had hoped she might understand and sympathize since she has an autistic child of her own, unless she is one of those people who assume that since I am higher functioning than her son, I am not actually autistic. But I ended up going about the rest of the day normally and later relayed the story to some friends, who all agreed she was completely unreasonable. I thought that was the end of it. But then she came back yesterday. This time, I was not alone. I had a coworker with me, and I will call him Damien. He was sitting at the register while I was cleaning a ball python's tank when she walked in. She immediately froze in her tracks when she saw me. I looked up at her, thinking she looked familiar, and I was about to go into my usual customer service greeting of, "Hi, can I help you with anything?" But, just like before, she spoke up first. She said, "I'm here to get a mouse. I also want your manager's phone number. Remember me?" "Yeah, I want to report you." I sat there completely stunned, thinking, my day just started, and this is already happening. I tried to tell her that I did not think I could give her my manager's personal phone number, but she cut me off and stormed over to Damien. I went back to taking care of the snakes while listening in. I could not hear all of it, but I caught bits and pieces of her rant. She claimed that I had gone off on her son. All I had done was say that I was a boy and demanded the security footage from that day, with audio included. I highly doubted she even remembered the exact date, and I certainly did not. On top of that, the security cameras automatically delete footage after about a week, and my boss would probably rather do anything else than spend hours searching through old security recordings. At this point, I was annoyed with this woman, but I kept quiet until Damien walked past me. I whispered to him, "She's one of those entitled customers. I'll explain when she leaves." He gave me a knowing look and nodded. Thankfully, she did not try to talk to me directly anymore, and once she finally left, I explained the whole story to Damien. We both ended up laughing about it. Unfortunately, it seems like she might be somewhat of a regular customer. I have only seen her those 2 times, but that means this is likely not the end of it. I will definitely update if she comes back again. For now, I have not told my manager about this situation yet, mostly because she is usually not around when I am working, and she is not the best about checking her text messages. But I plan to go in tomorrow and catch her up on everything that has happened, because I know she will be on my side. Knowing her, she will probably find the entire thing hilarious. Story 3. A lot of people get mistaken for employees because of their outfits. Usually, those encounters aren't very pleasant. I thought I'd share one of my nicer workplace memories from decades ago, when I was a student working a summer job at a bank as a doorman and errand runner. The bank provided me with a sharp-looking navy blue jacket and matching slacks. I was tall, slim, young, and felt pretty confident in that outfit, which was very different from my usual casual wear. Normally, I ate lunch in the bank's cafeteria, but one day my colleague and I decided to go to the nearby McDonald's. I placed my order and waited for the cashier to tell me the price. Instead, the young woman behind the counter smiled, handed me my tray, and said, "There you go, have a nice day." Confused, I tried to hand her some money. She leaned closer and said, "Oh, you must be new. Didn't they tell you? You don't have to pay here." I must have looked baffled, because she continued, "You security guys get one free meal per shift in this mall. It's in your contract." I could have just walked off with my free food, but I showed her the bank's logo on my shirt and told her I wasn't mall security. She laughed and said, "Oh, you definitely look like one. Hold on, I'll make you a free milkshake for your honesty." On the way back to the bank, two people who seemed troubled were sitting on the pavement. One nudged the other, stood up straighter, and muttered, "Hey, sharpen up. Those are private security guys in suits, not the regular mall guards. Those guys are tough." That day, I felt like James Bond. Milk beverage shaken, not stirred. Story 4. My son had been begging me for weeks to teach him how to throw a curvy ball. He's 7 and obsessed with baseball ever since his school started a little league program. I'm a single dad working 2 jobs, so finding time for things like this isn't easy. But I promised him we'd go to the park on Saturday morning before my afternoon shift at the hardware store. We got to the community park around 10 in the morning. It's this nice little place with a big open field that's perfect for throwing a ball around. My son was so excited he could barely contain himself. He'd been carrying around this beat-up baseball everywhere for the past month. It wasn't anything special, just a regular baseball I got him from the discount store. But he treated it like it was signed by his favorite player. We found a good spot on the grass and started playing catch. I was showing him how to hold the ball for different throws when this woman approached us. She was probably in her 40s, wearing expensive workout clothes. She told us we needed to move. When I asked her what she meant, she explained that this was where she did her morning yoga routine, and we were in her spot. I looked around the massive field. There had to be at least 2 acres of open space, and we were taking up maybe a 10-foot square area. I told her this was a public park, and there was plenty of room for everyone. She said she'd been coming here every Saturday for 3 years, and this was her spot. She acted like she shouldn't have to explain this to me. My son was standing behind me, still holding his glove, looking confused. I didn't want to make a scene in front of him. I suggested she could set up her yoga mats somewhere else since there was tons of space available. Her face turned red. She stepped closer to me. She said I was being difficult and that she was asking me nicely to move. I declined and told her we had just as much right to be here as she did. She stood there for a moment, and I thought maybe she'd finally give up and find another spot. Instead, she did something I never expected. She walked right up to me and punched me in the stomach. It wasn't a hard punch, but it caught me completely off guard. I stumbled backward a step, more from shock than anything else. I asked her what was wrong with her. But she wasn't done. Before I could react, she walked over to my son and snatched the baseball right out of his hands. She said maybe now we'd learn some manners. My son started crying immediately. Not just regular crying, but that heartbroken wailing that only kids can do when something precious is taken from them. He was asking for his ball back and telling me she took it. I was furious, but I had to keep my cool with my son there. I stepped between them and demanded she give him back his ball. She refused, saying she was keeping it as payment for us being so rude to her. By this point, other people in the park had noticed the commotion. A small crowd was gathering around us, and I could hear people whispering. One woman asked if she had just hit me. A man said it was terrible and someone should call the police. Another woman told her to give the child his ball back right now. The crowd was getting bigger, and people were clearly on our side. She was outnumbered, but instead of backing down, she seemed to get angrier. She yelled at everyone to mind their own business and said this was between her and us. An older man in the crowd, probably in his 60s, stepped forward. He was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, just looked like a regular guy out for a morning walk. He told her she couldn't just take things from children and that it wasn't right. This older man suggested she should just give the boy his ball back so everyone could move on with their day. She turned to face him, and I could see she was losing it. She told him to mind his own business too. Then she did it again. She punched this complete stranger who was just trying to help. But this time was different. The man barely moved when she hit him. He just stood there and reached into his back pocket. The man told her she was under arrest for assault. He said he was a detective with the city police department. He pulled out his badge and showed it to her. Her face went white. She said he couldn't arrest her and that she barely touched him. The detective explained that she had assaulted me in front of my child, then assaulted him, and also took property that didn't belong to her. He told her to turn around and put her hands behind her back. The crowd that had gathered started clapping and cheering. My son stopped crying and watched with wide eyes as the detective put handcuffs on her. The detective told me he would need me to stick around to give a statement and asked if my son and I were okay. I told him we were fine, just shaken up, and thanked him for stepping in. He handed my son his baseball back, and my kid's whole face lit up. My son asked if she was going to jail. The detective told him she would have to answer for what she did, but that we didn't have to worry about her anymore. When they waited for a patrol car to arrive, she kept trying to argue her way out of it. She said this was ridiculous, and all she wanted was to do her yoga. She claimed we were in her spot. The detective told her she had the right to remain silent and suggested she use it. When the patrol car arrived, the whole crowd watched as they put her in the back seat. Some people were taking videos with their phones. Before the detective left, he gave me his card and told me someone would contact me about pressing charges. He also ruffled my son's hair and told him he did good by staying calm. When we watched the police car drive away, my son asked if we could still play catch. I told him absolutely and that we should work on that curvy ball. We spent the rest of the morning playing catch on that exact same spot where she had tried to kick us out. My son never let go of that baseball the whole time, holding it extra tight like someone might try to take it again. A few weeks later, I got a call from the prosecutor's office. She had been charged with 2 counts of assault and 1 count of theft. The detective told me she'd tried to claim self-defense, but with all those witnesses and the video footage people had taken, it was cut and dry. She was ordered to do community service at the very same park where the incident happened. Every Saturday morning for 6 months, she had to pick up trash while families like mine enjoyed the space she thought belonged to her. Story 5. Okay, people of Reddit, I thought I'd share a story from when I was younger and when my children were still small. This took place in the summer of 1975. At the time, my sons were 9 and 7 years old, and they were in the Cub Scouts. Like most kids, they quickly made friends with the other children. As a dad, I made friends with the other fathers who volunteered. Most of us got along very well with the families, except for one particular mother and her son. This mother was extremely clueless about her own child and basically refused to parent him. She seemed more interested in the image of being a mother joining social groups and spending her husband's money rather than actually raising her son. The father was a good person, but he worked long hours and was rarely around. Their 9-year-old boy was notorious for being a bully. He was overly aggressive, hit other children, stole things, and was extremely disrespectful toward adults. When other parents tried to bring this behavior to her attention, she always made excuses. "He's just a boy. He's just expressing himself. Your kids must have started it." What made it worse was that she would pacify him with sweets, toys, or whatever else he wanted. Because of this, the other parents and I never invited her or her son to events that took place outside of Scouts. She would often call our house asking if her son could come for sleepovers or play with our kids, but we were very firm that it wasn't going to happen. If we didn't give in, she accused us of bullying her son by excluding him. She even once said, "How could you do that to a child?" and threatened to call the governor for discrimination because she was a Baptist. In late June, the other parents and I started planning a beach trip to Santa Cruz with our families. There were about 10 other moms and dads involved in the planning. Somehow, the entitled mother must have overheard us because she walked right over with her son and said, "Entitled mother, can you take my son with you? I have to do something with my husband." Me, what? Where? Entitled mother, to Santa Cruz. Me, no, you and your son are not invited. This is a friends-only trip. Entitled kid, you're a big meanie. Kicks me in the leg and runs away. Entitled mother, look what you did, child hater. She left and chased after him. Since this was a big trip, we all decided to go shopping and hit the road on Friday. We needed to stock up on supplies in bulk to reasonably feed 12 adults and 18 kids. My wife and I, along with 4 other parents, were watching the cars and keeping the kids occupied. For a moment, I turned to my car to turn up the air conditioning because my children said they were hot. When I looked back, the entitled boy was suddenly standing there with his bag, and I saw his mother peeling out in her station wagon. We were all in shock, asking ourselves, is this really happening to us? The boy's mother had left him with a note that listed his allergies and an emergency phone number. We tried calling, but got no answer. We couldn't leave the boy alone, but we also weren't going to take him with us on the trip. So, we decided to call the police. We put him in the car to keep him out of the sun and made the call, reporting the mother for abandoning her child. An officer arrived about 15 to 20 minutes later. While we were waiting for the police to arrive, the other parents and I kept watch over the cars. When we returned, we were horrified to see the entitled boy pulling on my 4-year-old daughter's hair. The reason? Some of the kids had snacks in the cooler and didn't want to share them with him. As we ran over to stop it, about 10 of the boys jumped in to pull him off my daughter, and then a full fight broke out. Honestly, those kids had 2 years of frustration bottled up toward this boy. So what happened next wasn't exactly surprising. The entitled boy ended up bleeding and crying. He shouted that we were all mean and started demanding food from us. He cursed at us, hit things around him, and kept yelling, "I want to go on the trip. I want to go on the trip. I want to go on the trip now." He kept repeating this again and again. In frustration, I finally shouted back, "Be quiet," which only made him cry even harder. I'll admit that wasn't the best reaction on my part, but this was one of the few children in my life that I truly could not stand. Fortunately, the police arrived soon after. We explained everything that had happened. They informed us that the boy was taken to his father's workplace, and the mother was charged with child neglect. When she later found out that our children had fought with hers, she tried to press charges for assault. However, the case was dismissed because it was clearly self-defense. In the end, my friends, our kids, and I had a great week in Santa Cruz. If you're wondering what became of that mother and son, the parents are still married, but we haven't spoken to her since our children aged out of Scouts. As for the boy, he grew up to be a 55-year-old man who never really changed. He still acts immaturely, creeps around trying to meet much younger women, and sadly neglects his own 4 children. Well, that's my story. Reddit. That's all. Folks. Edit. Many people say I condoned what happened to the entitled boy. I want to make it clear that I didn't. Some argue that I should have shown more compassion. But what would you do if your daughter was crying and being harassed? The kids were somewhat far away from where we were standing, so the other parents and I couldn't break up the fight immediately. The conflict started because the boy wanted a snack from the cooler. If he had simply asked nicely, the kids or I myself would likely have given him something. There's a difference between being firm and being heartless. Standing up to poor behavior isn't cruelty. It's refusing to let someone mistreat you or your family without consequence. If anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer. Story 6. This is really a vent, but I also open to hearing experiences and some consolation and advice on how to move forward. I'm at a point where I'm considering going even lower contact than I already have been. In the past, I would go to her for so much life advice and really permission, because I felt like I had to get her approval in order to do anything. When I became an adult and moved away from home out of state, I began to see the error of my ways and scale back on depending on her for everything. Then got married, and now just recently had my first child as of 8 weeks ago. We've had conversations since I've been married about my upbringing and how I want to be treated, like not giving unsolicited advice, asserting her opinion even when I tell her I'm going my own way, venting about her marital, financial, and familial problems to me, and not listening to me when I speak, interrupting me and going on and on about what she thinks. Because of these things, I chose to go low contact with her. But my husband's mom just passed away, and she came into town to provide help with the new baby during the funeral and to voluntarily support around our house. I would like her to have a relationship with our daughter if possible. She is ecstatic about being a grandmother, but does things without considering how my husband and I want them done. She is also quite lonely and does things that signal that she wants connection, but in a needy way, such as telling me that she feels left out when my husband and I are having conversations about people in the car with her and not telling her who they are, although we include her in conversations about people while we are in the car to help her feel included. She says that we are supposed to treat guests a certain way. In our most recent conversation, I laid out a couple of concerns that I had and my boundaries for them and the consequences. These things were that when she came to help our daughter during my Mill's funeral, we needed her to drive our car with our daughter in because we can't take the car seat in the van the funeral home provided, and my husband and I wanted to ride with his immediate family there. She made a poor decision to feed our daughter while she was driving to our destination and told me that she had to do it because she was screaming, and that she said I told her that I didn't want our daughter screaming in the car. I then told her I never told her that directly and that idea never should have applied to this situation. Plus, that was extremely unsafe and to not do it again. She replied with something she always says, "I know, I just had to do it, but I won't do it again." I insisted that she not do it again, or that will sever our relationship. She said she would not do it again, but that she had to do it in this instance. I also brought up that we didn't appreciate her not asking how we would like things done around our house and just using whatever she could find to clean our floors, which ended in her throwing away a towel that was not meant for that purpose because she didn't know where the Swiffer pads were. I told her to just ask if she doesn't know where things are, and she said she knows, but she, again, had to do it. But that it won't happen again. I told her you didn't have to do it, you just chose to, and to not do it again. She starts to tell me that she has issues with accepting the way we do things in our house because she feels like she can't be the mom she's always been for me, and that she feels like we don't need her, and starts crying, but that she'll do what we ask. But then after I end the conversation, she called me back to say that she hopes I would use wisdom in discussing our conversation with my husband because she doesn't know me and wants my husband to have a good view of her. I told her that how I speak about this conversation to my husband is not her area to control, and she didn't like that. Then I dismiss us both off the phone because it begins to drag on as usual with her rebuttals. Afterwards, she apologizes but tries to slick guilt-trip me afterwards by sending this message. "I want you to know that I love you and don't want any reserved feelings of contention between us or M. There's a lot of growth and introspection that I must work harder on. These things may take more grace than you are willing to give. I appreciate you bringing these concerns to my attention, and I will respect your space and flow. My husband and I have noticed that she struggles with just accepting responsibility for her actions and leaving it at that, because somehow it always comes back to me not being willing to give her the grace she needs, and that I need to understand her feelings as a mother. I didn't know that telling someone that we don't use towels to mop the floor and then throwing them away because we have Swiffer pads would lead to such a meltdown and identity crisis. We just don't want her to try to figure things out on her own when we already have a system going, not undermine her mothering. And we would like to stop the guilt trips after boundaries are set as well. Is the next step even lower contact or no contact? What would you do in this situation?